Do you know your genealogy?
Pretty much. Elaine and YouTube, but Elaine and I more.
I started the database and started out as family, but as they married, I got 12,500 names.
Yeah. Any Kittingers in there? That's a good old
Oh yeah, Kittingers. Everybody except his family. I can't connect up to him.
Hi, how you doing? I'm good. I'm good. I saw you come in. I get a chance to come over. They look good. Well, I got a lot of stuff. And I don't know anything about it. When I go to one of these schools, somebody has some additional information happen. You'll see a lot of these places. You remember those places, they'll look familiar.
Now, what is
How did you go? I went there for a second.
I started teaching it the year I was 5.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Krause. What can I say? That's the way I am. I know.
My son. My oldest son.
I wasn't sure. I mean, he kept praising a lot. But, and I wonder what the relationship is.
Yeah, he lives out of what you probably know as the Walter Farm on the Ortana Road.
Oh, okay.
That's him there. He couldn't figure it out.
Face off. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't know anybody, huh?
Yeah, I have 2 of mine that are downtown. I have a daughter that's married with me. So they are the ones that moved me up here. I had some health issues 3 years ago. Which is every time.
Things are a little more
delivered. Of course, I don't need all that stuff. Hello, Randy. Fine. How you doing?
Good. Good to see you. I haven't seen you in a few years. I saw you up in Ortana. Chicken feed.
Yeah,
A few years ago.
been known to go up there once in a while. It's one of the few places I go anymore.
How's life treating you?
I'm able to sit up and eat.
Oh, that's important.
You in Gettysburg or where are you?
Yeah, we live outside of Gettysburg. Right almost across the street from the outlet mall.
Lake Heritage.
Well, I didn't Lake Heritage. I act like you're going to go to Lake Heritage. You live in the old family farm? Or? Now, the Walters farm, who lives there?
My son Kevin.
Well, one of your sons buy the Nicholas farm?
My daughter.
Your daughter? All close by. Everybody live in these places all the time?
Yeah, we lived there. They lived there, and then they moved me up here because I was having some health issues. So nobody was living back at my home place since Dad died, so I went back there. How about your sister? She's around or
No, she's not here. She's still alive.
healthy?
Yep, pretty
In
good.
the area?
She's 80 years old. Late She's 80 years old. She has more energy than Jack and I put together.
She got a few less pounds. So she got a few less pounds. Seems
Yeah.
like her skinny ones have the energy.
Yeah, she wasn't one of them. Well, we all put on a little bit.
Yeah, that's Kevin sitting up there on the stage. He's my oldest.
Well, it's good to see you.
This is wife Kim over here.
Okay.
This is Jack's older brother Randy.
Thank you. Well, I better get to see you. Good to see you.
I think I mentioned you on Facebook the other day.
That's right.
I think I might have mentioned you. Andrews, and I said, I really hated Randy Andrews, but he was a principal's son, so he had to sort of take care of you.
I think back on that, putting up them all those years like I did, I don't know. I wouldn't do that again.
The conditioning was 5 laps around the gym for 2 or 3 nights, and you were conditioning. Come on, that's not conditioning.
Yeah, he's a terrible person.
Oh, yeah, he lined you up on the bleachers, throw balls at you.
Somebody said he's dead. I don't know.
Which surprised me.
God, I'm 73. He's 10 or 12 years older than me, so he's 85 or something. Which sites?
Montana, I believe. His boys went out there, they were higher smoke jumpers or whatever, and then they moved out there. I haven't seen anybody. I didn't recognize you. I wouldn't recognize you.
I'm just.
Yeah, I started with the whole. Yeah, so I was only there 4 or 5 years, and they sent me downtown. Spent the rest of my career in Baltimore and Washington, Northern Virginia, wherever.
We've been retired a while.
I had a bad health scare in 1998. My grandmother was stressed. I was living in Fairfield and commuting to DC every day. I had an opportunity to retire. I just said, I'm done. 54 years old. 32 years. I haven't had a real meaningful job since then. Sometimes I just go,
Well, you're quiet. Anybody can see something, source of people can see something. We have 9 now.
Donald Harbaugh, Leon, Mike Brown, brothers, and his
Oh, yeah. His old brother 80 years old, just died here the other week.
Back in January, we talked about coming through.
Yeah, right.
That's right, he's the oldest. That's not all the boys are dead.
I started out in first grade with graduated right on. But
Girls seem to be thriving. One girl has a married.
That's the girl I have here. The mother on the church choir, I had her to Bible study, Sunday school teacher. She gave me a Bible when I was 8 years old. Dad driving the school bus. It was fun. Oh, well, you'll tonight you'll know all that.
Mother took him off the road.
Yeah, we have
64, and he had an incident up in Mount Hope area where my mother had some difference of opinion with the kid, and she busted onto the bus and slapped the kid. That was very disconcerting for both of them. Mother didn't take the handle.
No, that makes sense. So you can bring that up. Con. I heard she moved to San Diego, California.
I think that's right. She hasn't been done into reunions.
Yeah, I'm having one.
You were acting.
I hadn't seen this guy for a long time.
Well, you know, he's around. Yeah. I used to see
No.
All right, if we can start finding our seats, we're going to get started and try to keep true to the time. Good evening, everybody. My name is Kevin Ray. I'd like to welcome you to the first public offering of the Fairfield Area Historical Society entitled Schools of Fairfield's Past. And we know it's the first of very many. I'm glad that you make it tonight. Because it's the first, we did want to take just a little bit of extra time and tell you some things about membership and about how the Fairfield Area Historical Society came to be. And we're going to do that briefly here in the beginning before we turn things over to Jack and a good program on the schoolhouses and our educational roots here in Fairfield and the surrounding townships. The initial roots of this, does everybody hear me okay? Too loud, too soft, everybody? Good? All right. The initial roots of the Fairfield Area Historical Society actually started back in the late 1990s when a group got together and there were some preliminary events that didn't really take and get traction. And it was about 10 more years before the subject was addressed again. As 2010 rolled around, and with the 150th anniversary of the battle looming straight ahead, a group began to meet more formally to form a historical society and also to plan the 150th anniversary of the battle. When things got closer to 2013, that had to be put on the back burner because of the 150th celebration. But directly after, the borough number one decided to donate the proceeds from the 150th towards the organization of Historical Society in the Fairfield area. And a steering committee was formed. That steering committee included 2 residents from the borough and 2 residents from each of the surrounding townships, Hamilton Band, Liberty, and Freedom. As that group began to meet, we took care of some of the things that needed to be taken care of first, coming up with a mission statement, getting our 501c3 classification. But it wasn't long after we started talking about what a historical society might look like in Fairfield. And with that, we also spoke about what really defines the history of Fairfield. I mean, some of the answers are really easy. There was a cavalry battle here on July 3rd, 1863. Jeb Stuart came through town the year before. But there are other things too that really define us. Our agricultural roots, especially in the apple industry, the progression of the infrastructure of the town, from the advent of electricity in 1915 to the paving of the streets, to other more modern day things that make our town what it is today and the surrounding area. And as we're here tonight, the school system and how it kind of evolved from a single schoolhouse to what it is today. And as you sit in one of those buildings from the early 1970s, my own energy, for the most part, as far as the Historical Society, has been towards the Facebook page. Not only the creation of that page, but deciding what to post for content, and the background work of scanning pictures, talking to residents, getting stories, and that's been very rewarding. I've enjoyed that a whole lot. But I've learned one thing about history and preserving and protecting our historical heritage. That is that we need to be intentional. We need to be strategic. We can't let history take care of itself. We can't let history decide to preserve itself. And I'm going to leave you with a story that shows you both sides of that. Obviously, if we're not intentional with history, we can die today, and the people that lived with us could tell the story of our life. But when they died, if nothing had been done to preserve what we were all about, there would be nothing to remember except maybe a few documents at a hospital or a little bit of things like that you may find. So we must be intentional. I got to talk to a resident recently who was both had a happy story and a sad story of being intentional and not being intentional enough. As I talked to this individual, they lamented and how their mother used to spend hours and days and over the years, much time looking into the history of the Fairfield area, but not really writing anything down, not really cataloging anything. And the person I was talking to said, when I finally decided to go and ask my mother about all that stuff she was studying, her dementia was too advanced for her to recall too much, and so much of it was lost. But the silver lining of it was, that same resident also brought these out. Said, these are very old. I don't know if you can get anything to play off of them. But I'll try, I said. And I took them home, and for a while they sat on my table at home, trying to figure out a way to play them. And I figured the only way I knew how to play them was on my own grandparents' kind of made-frame 1950s vintage tabletop reel-to-reel player, which I was able to get and wipe the dust off of, plug in without shocking myself, since the plug is held together with electrical tape. And the first reel-to-reel, when I tried to play it, it sounded much akin to the Alvin and the Chipmunks, recorded at the wrong speed. I've been trying to slow that down. I think I've come to the conclusion that it's an early Cub Scout meeting of Pack 76. And that's a chatterbox to start with anyway, as you may imagine. But when I got the little 3-inch reel, and I put it on the reel-to-reel player, and I plugged it in, a voice crackled to life that had not been heard in these for over a half century. Because it was January the 8th of 1966, when Doug Newman, then a young teen, was on his paper route, and as he reached the house just left of the Catholic Church on Main Street, he saw just what he feared, that the pile of papers was continuing to grow, sitting on the porch. And when he looked in the window, he saw that the old man inside was still sitting in the same chair, in the exact same position he was the day before, and the day before that, and the day before that. They did summon some authorities. The coroner came down and determined the old man had been dead since Tuesday of that week of a cerebral hemorrhage. And with his passing went one of the most endearing citizens in Fairfield history. His accolades are many. He was one of the first early rural mail carriers back in 1901, something he continued to do for about a quarter of a century. Superintendent of the Sunday School at Zion Lutheran, charter member of the Fairfield Fire Company. He was the Burgess for a while later in life. But what Frank Moore is probably most remembered for is being perhaps the first unofficial historian in Fairfield history. And on this 3-inch disc is the voice of Frank Moore telling the story of the Bard family massacre, right down to this often used emphatic tagline of, "Don't you know?" This is history that was intentionally preserved. That's what we need to do to preserve our history and our heritage here. I'm going to turn things over to Sally so she can tell you a little bit about membership. Enjoy the show tonight.
I don't think I need a microphone. Can you hear me? Yeah, I have one of those voices that just does not need to be protected artificially. Membership. We have brochures at the table. As you walk in, you may or may not have seen them. But if you did not, please feel free to pick one up. All of the information that we require for you to be a member is right inside the brochure, with an explanation of the different levels of membership. You can either fill it out tonight, we can take your information and your money by check or cash, or you can take it along home with you and send it in. The address to send it is also included in the brochure. There are 2 things that are missing on the brochure though, unfortunately, or one thing that is incorrect rather. The corporate membership. It does not explain in the brochure that if you sign up with a corporate membership, your company will get a link from the Historical Society website to your company. So that's a real nice benefit. And then the other thing is, it was pointed out that we say fiscal year. Our fiscal year is calendar year, January to January. So just to clear that little bit up. I'd like to do something real quickly, and that is, Kevin, thank you so much for that nice introduction. That was great. And I want to thank all of you for being here, because this is a really special night for all of us. But I thought it would be nice if you would get to hear the names of the people who got this started. So I'm going to read them off to you. We have Pamela Mikesell, if you'd like to stand up. That would be nice. Phyllis Gilbert, I'm sorry you can't, I know, but next time. Nancy Wenshaw. Dean Thomas. Carol Smith. Jack Inskip. Colleen Raymer. Kevin Brain. And then I'm here. So for now, just to let you know, the pieces that we do have gathered together are in a room at the Hamilton Van Township office. We do have a little room there that we're allowed to use for our purposes. Of course, as we grow, it is the hope that perhaps we'll have another venue. Yeah, we're all looking at that, kind of keeping our fingers crossed, because wouldn't that be amazing? And it doesn't hurt to dream big. But with all of that, again, thank you for coming, and I'd like to introduce Jack. Jack is going to give our program tonight on the old schools of Fairfield area, and I think you're going to enjoy it. I picked up all of his notes. There you go.
Boy, I hope you didn't mess them up.
I'm sure I did, but it's okay.
Let me ask you, can everybody hear me? Okay, it's a good cafeteria style voice, so I had to yell over a number of kids over the years. Oh, first of all, thank you. The turnout here is just great. I'm really pleased to see everybody here. And we have a lot of people here who have a lot of direct connections to the Fairfield school system. I've seen some people here that I haven't seen in ages. I think that I counted very quickly 5 or 6 people here whose parents were principals, whose grandparents were teachers in one-room schoolhouses and things like that. So I'm really glad that we have some people here. Tonight's discussion, of course, will focus in on the schools. And I'm sure you realize that many stories have been told about the schools, pupils, and teachers over the years. But there are few records. So what you hear tonight is what we can honestly put together from scant records, newspaper articles, and just plain stories that have been passed down. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Some of them may be true. Some of them may be half true. And some of them may, in fact, be embellishments of someone's memory. And to show you to give you an example of what that is, those of you who don't know, I was principal here for 30 years. And in the time that I was principal here for 30 years, I did, and I know this is going to sound terrible, I did paddle one kid. One kid in 30 years. I don't know how many times I've had people come. You remember that time you paddled me in this grand scale? That didn't happen. One kid and his parents came in. So at any rate, I shouldn't really tell you that with all the stuff that's going on these days. At any rate, to understand our schools, where they have come from, it's important to understand the educational system in Pennsylvania. And we'll begin with that. The Quakers, who were the founders of Pennsylvania, put a high value on education. But they didn't provide for the education of everybody. They had visually established what they called subscription schools. Now, anybody thinks about that knows what that really means. They're very basically private schools. And these were taught by learned people. And that could be just anybody who could read or write at that particular time. And parents paid a certain amount of money for their kids to go to these schools, just basically to learn to read and write. This system evolved into a system where clergy would often teach and preach. This education would only be for a few years because a lot of people think that these schools originally started out as 1st through 8th grade schools. Well, that's not the case. A lot of these schools actually started out as places where people just go for a year or two, just long enough to learn how to read and to write. And if they learned how to read and write in those days, they were considered to be educated people. This education would only last typically for about a couple, and then they were able to stay around till maybe they were 10, 12 years old. Of course, in the cities, they went a little bit further than that. But what really happened was, after a while, and this is the time of the Industrial Revolution, people began to realize that poor children weren't getting an education. Just the people who had a little bit of money that were able to send their kids to a subscription school. So the legislature then passed a law that all the pauper children had to go to school. Now, they only went to school for a year or two. And this caused a lot of consternation, because what happened here is that the taxpayers, see, the townships had to provide for this. They had to get a list of the pauper kids, and they had to send them to maybe one of the subscription schools. Well, believe it or not, I mean, this is hard to believe in the late 1700s and the early 1800s. Paying taxes. Strange, isn't it? Well, at any rate, townships were empowered to get tax residents to pay for the school. As I said before, this situation caused a lot of problems, and people complained, moaned, and groaned. But lo and behold, in 1834, the Free Public School Education Act was passed in Pennsylvania. And of course, that was by Thaddeus Stevens. He stood up in the middle of the legislature and made a very dramatic speech about people needing to have an education. So at any rate, that bill passed. But what happened was the bill wasn't that all of a sudden everybody had public education. Each township had to accept this bill. Not everybody was on board with that. Resistance to a free education was high. People didn't want to pay additional taxes, and places for schools were hard to find. In 1887, and another bill that was championed by Thaddeus Stevens was to put aside separate funds by the state legislature to build school buildings. One-room schools then began popping up all over the Fairfield area. Most of these schools were basically taught children to read and write, and most only went up to second or third grade. Most of these schools were named after a location or a family that had a lot of children in that particular school. These schools also weren't just schools, but there was an account that some of these schools, a lot of these schools, were used for very diverse organizations. Some of them were used for anti-slavery organizations. Some of them were used for temperance organizations. And religious groups also used these schools. There are some complaints. There are some complaints for some of these schools because they were being used by all these other people. They'd leave the place in a mess and they wouldn't do all this and all that. So, as time went on, a need for more education, educated populace was needed. Schools began to add more grades, and finally we start getting up towards what we would consider close to the 8th grade. Gettysburg established the first high school in Adams County in 1885. Fairfield established a high school that was officially recognized by the state in 1908, but it actually began in 1890 to approve it. In 1919, Franklin and Hamilton Dam townships were the first townships that would consolidate some of these schools, because you had all kinds of little schools that were all over the place. For over a century and a quarter, 1- and 2-room schoolhouses, common schoolhouses, served Adams County. Now, I'm glad that we have some of the representatives here from Hamilton Band Township, because I'm going to give them a little bit of a kudo, even though they had nothing to do with this. Hamilton Band Township was one of the first districts in the state to adopt a common school. The legislature passed the law in 1884, In 1835, Hamilton Band Township was one of the first ones to begin to accept really quite something as you read some of this stuff about these places. They weren't able to get the school actually started that year. It did not actually get started till a year later. But they were the first ones to get it started. As time went on, there were all kinds. There were actually 19 different schools in 1900s in what we call the Fairfield Area School District, present Fairfield Area School District. A consolidated school was opened in 1931, which brought most of these people together, giving Hamilton Band one of the only of 2 such schools in the county. And that was the building that was torn down. You'll see some pictures up here later. Fairfield was incorporated as a borough on August 26, 1896. Understand that Fairfield was a part of Hamilton Band Township. It was not a town at that time. Fairfield's first year of operating their school was actually in 1998. Fairfield established a 2-year high school and was recognized by the state for that 2-year high school in 1908. 1919, they added a year to the high school, making it a 3-year high school. At that time, the school year was about 7 to 8 months long. You know, we had kids got to get out to the fields and they had to do all those kinds of things. Now, I haven't mentioned Liberty Township too much. I'm going to start now. I know that there are some Liberty Township people here. Liberty Township actually had voted down having the public schools. And they did so consistently for like 6 years. Finally, they established their own school in about 1840 or 1842, somewhere that's a little sketchy. And that was what was called the Tom's Creek School, later to be known as Gracie's School. Okay. Together to form the Fairfield Area School District in 1948. The Fairfield High School, which was located at what is the town hall and so forth, was shut down from 1947 to 1950. Now, I've asked some local experts as to why it was shut down. They haven't been really able to tell me, but judging by some newspaper accounts, that it appears that it was shut down because the town fathers didn't think they had enough kids. And they went and they decided to pay tuition instead to send the kids to either Gettysburg or Washington Township. Now, Washington Township no longer exists, but that was basically Blue Ridge Summer. So those were the 2 places. So they did this for several years. Parents were evidently actually forced the merger of all the township schools and established the Fairfield Area School District and reestablished the Fairfield High School. Fairfield's first graduating class after it was shut down was 1954. Now, at this time, I'd like to discuss one-room schoolhouses in Fairfield area. I want you to understand, I am by no means an expert. I make no pretense of being an expert. I know that there are people out there that know a lot more than I do and have stories that they can tell. So what I'd like to do tonight is I have pictures of these schools. I have some information on these schools. But people who can tell us more are invited to come and talk to us and share what they know with us. Okay? All right. Give me a second here. As you can see, this is the first school right here. Now, this school was built by Hamilton Band Township. In 1837, the school directors of Hamilton Band Township purchased this land where this school is and built a school. 1858 map shows a school on this location. In 1868, the directors bought a lot in town, which was now the town school, the village hall, and erected a school. Soon thereafter, they advertised the sale of this school. In 1869, a man by the name of Jacob Musman, which is certainly a prominent name here in the Fairfield area, purchased the building, added a second story. It was one room, just a one-story school before. And that gives a little bit of residence. And I hope I don't offend anybody, but it was owned by a family when I was a kid, by the name of Brooks, Proctor, and so forth, who were actually Indians. Indian Americans. Yeah, they were Indians, and they lived there. One of the stories, and I should tell this story, but I'm going to tell it anyway because I'm seeing the family here. One of the stories that we always used to hear was that they had one of the rooms in the back to raise chickens in. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. Somebody could maybe verify that for me. I don't know. Also, there was a very tragic incident that took place there. There was a little girl that got burned up in a fire. And I don't know exactly what year that was. But anyway, it was Chief Brooks was his name. Yeah, Chief Brooks. So anyway, that gives you an idea. Now, I understand that there is Carol, are they renovating this or something?
It's a possibility. We still haven't received any official request, but it's being looked at, yeah.
Okay. Now, this building did cause a certain amount of consternation in the borough about 2 or 3 years ago. It was actually it was called Fairfield's Cat House. There were a lot of feral cats that were living there in that house. And then, I didn't mean to be off color. Stonework on it is very solid, and so it's a nice looking building. Okay, this is the next building here. Now, I'm doubtful that I have too many people here that are in that went to school in that building. That's called Miney Branch. And for those of you who aren't familiar with that, Miney Branch School on Route 16. Been completely renovated and everything else. That was Miney Branch School. Miney Branch was closed in 1919. So it's been closed a long time. But it is on that pull-off there. And it was for those kids. Now, when we talk about consolidating schools, a lot of times they would do is they close down one-room schoolhouse, put them together. So that's what happened with that. The next schoolhouse, though, is pretty familiar to most of us here. Doesn't everybody know where the schoolhouse is? No. Well, maybe the reason why you don't know what it is, because the picture was taken in 1953. Anybody remember what school that is?
No.
The Mount Hope Church. Okay?
It's the Sunday school building, it's not the church.
What's that?
It's a Sunday school building.
It's a Sunday school building. Okay. And anyway, that building was closed in 1939. Now, I'm going to turn it over here to Sally for a couple minutes. And she's going to tell you a little bit bit more about the Mount Hope School and some of the stories that we hear about these schools in that area.
Tag team. Jack mentioned embellishments, local history as embellishments. I have a copy, and some of you may also have a copy as well, of a handwritten local history by Thomas Eiler and Laura Currens. And in that history, Laura talks about Mount Hope first being along Swamp Creek, which it was. Swamp Creek is? Okay, yes, it goes off to the right when you're almost at Strawberry Hill, you turn back that little road. The first schoolhouse was back along Swamp Creek and it was built of hickory logs, Laura says. She also says that one of the teachers' names was Israel Eiler. Israel Eiler was my great-great-great-grandfather. Yeah. But later, there was a teacher there by the last name of Rogers, and in Laura's account, she talks about him being very cross, and the students and the parents could not agree with him, and so the schoolhouse was burned down to the ground. Now, that is assuming a lot, okay? Because when we do the actual historical research on it, here's what we know. We know that on the 1858 Adams County map, we can find along Swamp Creek, Paxton's School, which is situated, according to told the schoolhouse site was. I used to give walking tours for Strawberry Hill, back Swamp Creek Road, and I would point out the indentation in the ground where the schoolhouse stood, and there was a spring directly behind it where they would get the water. So the 1858 map jives with what I knew. We have to assume, though, that Swamp Road is the same, which it has to be because it follows the creek, but Swamp Road itself is not mentioned on that map. And that's strange because it's one of the oldest roads in the county. Here's another thing we know. On January 10th, 1859, the Gettysburg Compiler reports that the school in Mount Hope was burnt to the ground. They do not mention that any disgruntled pupils or parents did the deed. What they say is it was a defective stovepipe or fluid. The 1872 atlas, we go a little bit later, shows no school along Swamp Creek anymore. It does, however, show a school closer to the top of the mountain. That school burned in February of 1896, so poor Mount Hope had a pretty bad time of it trying to keep a schoolhouse going. But in 1897, the compiler further says that a large and commodious schoolhouse has just been built at Mount Hope, and that's the one you see. And that's been standing ever since, and it is the Sunday school building. What I do have for your interest is, you see that jug over there? That is the original water jug that was in the Mount Hope School, and that came down through my family, so I thought you might like to see it. So anyway, there you go, conjecture, embellishment, and fact. Just put it together as best you can.
Thank you, Sally. Here's the next school. This is, I'm not going to tell you what school this is. Who knows what school that is? Remember, the picture's taken in 1953.
That's out of the family.
What?
That's out of the family.
Liberty Hall.
Liberty Hall. Liberty Hall. And if you know where Liberty Hall is, you go on top of the hill, you go out the track road, you go to the top of the hill, that's Liberty Hall. Liberty Hall Road goes down that way, and right before you get to Liberty Hall Road, that's the Liberty Hall School. It doesn't look anything like that. It is an absolute drop-dead gorgeous house. Dr. Flinner lives there. dentist in Gettysburg. But at any rate, that's the Liberty Hall School. Now, Liberty Hall School was actually closed in 1948. Kind of interesting about the Liberty Hall School is it was acquired in 1837, and it was already an existing schoolhouse. So we don't know whether that was the first house or not, Fairfield was the first schoolhouse or not. But they say that the original schoolhouse was destroyed by fire in 1847. And this is the house as it appeared in 1953. I love this kind of stuff because I hope you people know what that is. So that is what's at the outhouse. And that's, all those schools had outhouses and things like that. Now we have a fortunate situation tonight. Something a little special here that I want to share with you. We have a descendant of one of the teachers that taught at Liberty Hall School here with us. This descendant is, if you would stand up, Mrs. Kugler, Miss Kugler. Miss Kugler is the great-great-granddaughter of one of the teachers, Stanley, wasn't it? Stanley, and she's currently the superintendent of Fairfield. So we have a Fairfield connection there. So I think that's kind of cool. Karen, do you ever hear anything about the school? Or?
Actually, I have his journal of all students and his page stubs. He was paid $25 a year. And the third year that I had, he was paid $35 a year.
Very cool.
It was a big
And by the way, most of you people that are familiar with the area know that you go down maybe, 200, that's what was there. Okay, anything else about the Liberty Hall School?
Yes.
You have to take a drive up there sometime to see these places.
Walter was my first teacher.
I'm going to have to ask you to speak in this.
Walter Kugler, he said, was his first teacher.
Yeah.
What's that?
Walter Kugler was his first teacher.
Walter Kugler was your first teacher. That's cool. Did you go to Liberty Hall? Okay, you knew exactly where it was, huh? Do you have any other memories about that?
Well, I was taught 7.5 years from Chelsea Krause.
What's that?
She was my aunt.
Oh, is that right?
Yes. Great grandfather built that school. And I got it in my, it's like $6,000.
Well, he knows me. That's the reason why he says that embellishment. But that's fantastic stuff to have. So, anybody else? Wait a minute, you're talking here. I can't.
We couldn't hear what he said. Jonathan said.
Get the wireless mic up.
I'm going to try to use this one because it's just a little better. Want to say that again, Mr. Brown?
Walter Kugler was my first teacher when I started. I went 8 years to Liberty Hall. 7.5 years, my aunt taught Jesse Krause.
Okay.
And my great grandfather built that school for the farm children.
Is that your great grandfather? Is that where you inherited your skill as a carpenter and everything?
Probably.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have anything else?
Suggesting have the people identify themselves,
Yeah. Okay. I will.
and I don't know if that's turned on.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah, that's it. I can identify you. Could you identify yourself?
Nancy Fair, I went there growing up. It's full clothes. It's like 6th grade, yes.
I'll hold it a little closer.
I went there to 6th grade, and then we went into Fairfield School. Jesse Krause was my teacher. I also remember Charlie Fry. He had a big hickory stick. Anybody that did listen, he made them put their hands out and hit them with the knuckles.
Okay, thank you. That's great. I was afraid I didn't have anybody from Liberty Hall. Jack.
I'm Randy and Skip. I remember when we moved to Fairfield, that was Dr. Henderson's summer home.
I have that here. That Dr. Henderson bought that in 1950. Okay, I don't know if I have anybody here that knows that one or not. Anybody know where that school is? Doesn't look that way now. That's called Oak Grove. That's called Oak Grove, and Oak Grove is located south of Fairfield on Petra Road at, believe it or not, Oak Grove Road. This school actually closed in 1945. I thought maybe Gene Petra was here because I know he went there. But at any rate, this is a school. Now, this is the story I had heard. I heard at one time that the school was practically a school for one family, but they had so many kids. It was basically one family. Well, it was one family, the kids, and then their cousins and so forth, that it was all basically one room.
It was a two-family.
Two families. What was the other one?
Which one did you think?
Petra? What was the other one? Who? Oh, okay, very good. All right. That school doesn't look like that at all now. But if you drive down that way, you can see it. There. Okay, we all know that one. That is the Lower Track School. Now, there's a lot of people around that went to the Lower Track School because in, I think it was 1949 here at the school, and they put all the 4th grades in that building. 5th grade? I'm sorry. Okay, 5th grade.
6th grade went up to Liberty Hall at that time. Yeah, you had them.
Well, they had to move everything around because they were in the process of building, and they were consolidating all the schools, so they had to really do some shuffling around to be able to get everything done. It's now a Baptist church, by the way.
Jack, if you look at one of the pictures back here that has the 2 little girls and the teacher by the tree, the picture's not at the school, but that was Elsie Mays, who was the teacher at the time. Clyde went there from grade 1 through 5, and I guess a lot of other people did as well.
Okay, Clyde, did you do anything or carve anything out? Okay. $1953. Dick Bloom, where's that?
I wouldn't have any idea if it's Hardball Valley.
You got it. It's Hardball Valley. That's right across from where you used to live. I figured you know it.
Well, I remember back then, of course, it was all, it was church hall for a long time. They used to have bake days there. And old, the guy used to have the Fairfield garage, he was our bus driver. And yeah, big old dump bus. We all put the windows down. We come into the valley, you can actually smell all the stuff that everybody got together and was baking. I mean, the whole valley was just reading this stuff. I mean, it was wonderful.
Okay, this is now the Hardball Valley Church. And it's actually very well attended church. One of the things that's noticed, from what I understand, I haven't been up there, is bluegrass music and so forth. Is that right? Anybody been familiar with that?
That's the
live bluegrass music, live bluegrass gospel type music and so forth. It's very
Iron Springs.
What'd you say?
That Iron Springs.
You got it. It's Iron Springs. That wasn't the name of it. It was called Furnace School. Furnace School. Now, anybody who goes up the Iron Springs Road now can still see that school there. It is basically across from the B&C Church, Brethren in Christ Church. So right in there. Like a lot of these places, they don't look the same anymore, but at any rate, that's where it was. And you can see, I think it's a really interesting picture, because you see the kids playing out here, and that creek that runs down there, and that creek can get a little mighty every once in a while. So I think it's kind of a cool picture. That school was actually closed in 1929.
It became the church.
What's that?
It became the Iron Springs Church.
Could be, and then they moved across the street.
Yeah, they built a new one in 1950.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so that was prior to.
Okay, then move on here.
Somebody back here
My mother taught there.
Oh, did she? Oh, so we have at least 7 or 8 people now that have direct. Do you have any memories of that? Just she told you that she did that. That's pretty cool.
What was her name? What was her last name?
Now that school is located by one of our thriving metropolises in the Fairfield area. Fountaindale, you got it. And help me out here if I'm wrong, because I know some of you people know. Happy Richards with the base store and the gas station and so forth. What's that? Okay. He's ahead of his time. Okay, that's Fountaindale School. And like I said, it's later known as Happy Richards store. And that school was actually closed in 1949. I think it's kind of interesting, you know, the Atlantic gas sign. When's the last time you saw that? How long ago did that go up, you know? Now we have some people here who know this place very well.
Greenstone.
That is the Greenstone School. And we have somebody here with us tonight who actually still lives there. Mr. Dick here. So at any rate, his an interesting story about this school. This school was actually for the Fountaindale and Greenstone, excuse me, but it was later bought by C.A. Wills, and he bought this from an industrial mining company. I have the name of it here. Was it Chicago? No, Chicago Industrial Mining. No, Advanced Industrial Supply Company of Chicago. And it was actually kind of a mining operation that was up there. And C.A. Wills bought that place. Now, I'm sure just about everybody here knows who C.A. Wills was. But I'm going to give you just a little bit of a lesson on that. Because when you pulled in here, if you looked over to the side, that nice big house, that's C.A. Wills' house. C.A. Wills owned the Blue Ridge Pipe and Nipple Company, a lot of land. I just found out tonight that he actually I didn't know that. But C.A. Wills was also the president of the Gettysburg National Bank. And that was his place there. But C.A. Wills has an important role in the Fairfield Area School District. Because in 1947, 1948, with all the outcry about Fairfield losing its high school, C.A. Wills evidently took the initiative and decided that this school was the high school was going to come back. And he led the charge to bring the school back, and then with the school board and so forth. But he was very instrumental. One of the stories I always heard was that, remember, some of you may remember that they had the white board fences that used to go the whole way around the school. Yeah. Remember that? They were oak planks. And they supposedly gave all those white planks to the school, and they made all those fences and so forth. I thought that was kind of interesting. C.A. Wills was, and some of you may remember this, C.A. Wills had a driver. Okay. Yeah, he had a driver. And he used to have that driver was driving wherever he went. Wherever he went. So it was, he was quite a man. Actually, I had the privilege of being in his house several times when, with my dad, and that is quite a house. It is quite a house. I don't want to pay an upkeep on it, but it's quite a house. So that's C.A. Wills. Anything I'm missing?
No, he bought in 49. My company then moved my family up from what they call Tunnel Hill or in South Dad. And my one brother, Lester, was the first one born there. And I'm still there.
Hey, Jack, didn't C.A. Wills get your father here?
Yes.
I'll say that.
Yes. I have my brother here, so if I'm lying and I don't say the right thing, I mean, he'll get me squared away. But from what I understand, Randy, help me out here, that C.A. Wills found out that my father was working for C.H. Musselman, and that my father was getting tired of chasing tomatoes and apples. Is that right, Randy?
He was a field man for Musselman.
What's that?
He was a field man for Musselman.
Field man for Musselman, which at that time was actually a pretty good job. And
Use the other mic, Jack.
yeah,
That's not good.
just give me a second here. And my dad was a field man for that my father wanted to change careers. And C.A. Musselman, C.A. Wills, C.H.C.A., evidently went out and recruited Pop. Is that right, Randy?
Yes, but you have to realize our father had been the principal at Biglerville Elementary School before he went to Musselman.
Yeah.
So he had a background as a principal.
Yeah, and he taught in a one-room schoolhouse for a number of years. So Mr. Wills was responsible, largely responsible. And my father always regarded Mr. Wills as a friend. And so it's kind of interesting. Now that school is near and dear to some of the people here in this building. Cold Spring. Now, Cold Spring School, this is the school that's located at the top of the hill, Mount Newman, somewhere around Mount Newman Road. Give you a location here. Mount Newman Road between the Cold Springs Road and Baker Road. It's very near the Franklin County line. It was closed in 1950. Now, one of the things that I found amazing about that was that school had 40 to 60 kids in it. Now, my suspicion is not all of them lived in Hamilton Bend Township, because I got a feeling there was some, because it's right there in the Franklin County line, and things weren't quite the same there. You know, people switched over there. Now, we have the descendants of one of the teachers up there with us today, Elaine and Bob Reindahl. Bob, Mr. Reindahl.
Parents wrote story of their life, and they encouraged everybody to do this. And I just read tonight, Dad taught there from 1937. I think it was pretty much his first teaching job. 1937 to 1941, or for 5 years. He had, he taught in half of it, and he had grades 1 to 4 for 2 years. And a Mr. Norman Bushy had grades 5 to 8 in the other half. And then Norman Bushy, I guess, quit 1 year, or after 4 years when Dad was there, and my dad taught the 5 to 8 for a year, and then he came and taught here in town. Got drafted right away, so he took a break. But yeah, he said it was 9.5 miles from Fairfield to that school. And 1 year he lived with the Bushy family, and it was nice because he didn't have to drive so far. And he had 28 kids, it said, in his, I think his first year, grades 1 to 4, he had 28 students.
Amazing. Elementary principal here in Fairfield School District. And was the principal for what?
Until 1976, I think in the early 60s. Well, he said in the story I was reading, he had also applied for the superintendent's position, and your dad got it. So
Don't hold it against him. Don't hold it against him.
So Dad taught a few more years after that, and then was the teacher and the elementary school principal, and he retired in 1976.
And I took his place in 1976.
Yes.
So that's the size of it. And I'm Mr. Reindahl in school.
22, 23, 24 years as principal.
What's that?
22, 23, 24 years as principal. Is that right?
Yeah.
Something bad. And our mother
Yeah.
was the first kindergarten teacher in Adams County.
That's correct.
Your dad and a couple other leaders in the school came and sat around our kitchen table and asked Mom if she would teach. She had taught in many one-room schoolhouses in Shippensburg area.
Mm-hmm.
And she had also at the lower track school and taught a month at the lower track school.
You stole all my thunder, but that's okay. That's all right. People enjoy it.
We're going to get to that.
Well, it actually gives me a break anyway.
Okay.
But anyway, it's kind of interesting, and we'll kind of skip over to this. But the first kindergarten class was held in the Odd Fellows Hall. Now, the Odd Fellows Hall was right beside the town school. And Mrs. Reindahl was were you in the first class?
In first class?
That's probably the reason why she took the job. They wanted to make sure that you were okay. Okay, but this is Cold Springs School. And I just found that amazing that they had 50, 60 kids up there. Because I haven't had 50, 60 kids coming from up there in years. So, at any rate, so they were rather prolific, I would say.
Oh, that's Ortana.
Okay, that's the Ortana School.
Yeah.
Now, give you a little better handle on this. The Ortana School, this is called the Consolidated Ortana School. And it was closed in 1964. I believe it was, Calvin, it would be right if I said 1937.
Something like that.
1937 when it was originally built. So this is the Ortana School. And we, modern history, remember who the teachers were up there. Jim, who were the teachers?
Gladys Walter and Sarah Miller.
Gladys Walter and Sarah Miller. Now, I will digress just a little bit here. I thought one of the best stories that I ever heard was my dad said that he had to run up there one day because they were having problems with the furnace or whatever. And I don't know if it was a coal furnace or what it was. And at any rate, my dad went up there and they were the flue pipes pulled apart. And either Sarah Miller or Gladys Walter was covered in black soot. So at any rate, that was a story they used to tell. Again, might be embellished a little bit, but he got a big chuckle out of that, I can guarantee you that. Okay.
Is that right next to Now's plant?
It was, it's torn down now.
And are those like apple crates piled up there?
That's actually part of a storage area. This building is no longer there.
I see
It's been torn down.
It was torn down. When was it torn down?
I see Musselman's.
Yeah,
what's the question?
What's
when
that?
was it torn down?
When was it torn down?
When was it?
I was
when
gone
was
for a
the
long
school
time.
torn
It
down?
was, yeah, it was sat empty for a good while. I can't tell you.
Yeah, I know.
Okay?
It's a nice looking school.
Now, before we go on, I want you to take a good close, right? And keep in mind what it looks like. We'll talk about it again a little bit later. Okay. Does anybody know where this school is?
Beginning of the Mount Hope Road.
Yeah, do you know the name of it?
No, I don't.
Okay, it is called the Union School. It's called the Union School. And for those of you that are old timers, and I see a bunch of you in there, no problem. That was Stuart Sykes used to live there. Stu Sykes used to live there. So, and now Ronnie Hertz, Barbara Hertz lives there. Now this school was I want to give you the exact year. It was supposedly closed in 1929. But there's a little bit of a dispute about that. So, but 1928 or 1929 is where it was closed. Okay? Now we're going to digress for a couple moments because I know I have some schools here that I think are important to mention, but I don't have pictures of them. And I know there are some people who can talk about Mr. Shank. I want to talk about the Grayson School. It was also known as Tom's Creek originally. And this school has quite a history. It was actually mentioned in the newspapers in the Sentinel in 1854. And in 1868 and so forth, that school has been shown to be there. It was also owned by the Jingles. Is that right? The Jingle family. I remember the Jingle family. One unsubstantiated newspaper report, maybe you can confirm this with me, is that it says that this school's students were possibly the first students to be. Do you know anything about that? I thought that was kind of interesting. I mean, they started consolidating some of the schools. They didn't necessarily bring them in here. They could have sent them to another school, but this says, and a newspaper report says that they were one of the first groups of people to be bused. I thought that was kind of interesting. Now, I'm sure that you have some information that you'd like to share with us about the Grayson School. You can stand.
My sister, Nina Dolly,
Want to introduce yourself?
I'm well in shape. I'm the one that everybody called Punk. But I did go there grade 1 through 4, and then our family moved about 2 miles across the Mason-Dixon line, and I went and I was in the 10th grade. So it was a lucky streak for me because that's when I met my wife, and we've kind of, she's been paying for it ever since. But all I can tell you about the Grayson School is that it was up on a hill. It was a rectangular, a rectangular brick school. Had a bell out in the front, a porch went the whole way across the front. Of course, we had the 2 convenient restrooms in the back, one for girls and one for boys. We had a spring house, which was across the road, and we got to take turns going across the road to get a bucket full of water that had a dipper. My sister says she remembers having collapsible cups that they could use if they didn't want to drink out of the dipper. I don't remember that part. It was not uncommon to have Miss Altu beat us with a rubber hose when we went for water, and we took our good old time coming back into the school. I remember Jim Tully and his brother, Bill, and we consistently kept the mold off the rubber hose. It was a really good time in my life, and I enjoyed being there. The big blackboard went the whole way across, which was the back of the school. The furnace was right inside the door to the left, and it was a wood coal furnace. It had a bell on the top that she would ring, and I mean, if you weren't there when the bell rang, you got the rubber hose. And I can't think of any other things. My sister did write down what she remembers, and did you get a copy of that? I will give you a copy.
I have a picture, I believe, over there of one of the Grayson School, the class of Grayson School. So at any rate, Grayson School is certainly one that is very well known.
Where was it
We
located?
still have a lot of people that attended that school.
I'm sorry.
Now, the next school I
here where it was located. It's down at the intersection of Route 16 and 116 in Zork. And my wife and I went to housekeeping there. We owned it and lived there for a number of years, and I sold it to my brother, and he still lives there.
You forgot something.
Thank you. We'll put this in the archives. Thank you very much, Mr. Shea. Okay, the next school I want to talk about, I don't have a picture of it. And this is called the track school as well, and I find a reference to it every now and then as the Upper Track School. And that was located in Hamilton Band Township, north of Fairfield, on the Carroll's Track Road between Cold Springs and Knox Road. Now, in speaking to some of the people that tried the road at one time or whatever. And this is located in the midst of the Fairfield, Battle of Fairfield area. this school was actually closed in 1929, and it's shown on maps in 1858 and 1872. So at any rate, it was sold, I shouldn't say sold, bought by Harriet Mickley. Harriet Mickley?
They tended to revert back.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. That she had given the land to them, and then they gave it back to her. Thank you for that. It's right beside Harold Walter's farm.
It's right where the power line crosses the road. Power line that comes up through the field.
That's where it was.
Yeah, right there.
Do you know anything else, Calvin?
We have a family. The last picture for the year, they're about 6 years old. Instead of looking at the camera, they're looking at each other. So after my mother died, Arlene Brame used to come back to the house. So I don't know. Evidently, the interest lasted a long time.
Okay, the next school that I don't have a picture of is called the Ortana School, but it's the original Ortana School. And I talked to Calvin tonight, and it was supposedly located right at the railroad tracks. Is that correct? In beautiful downtown Ortana. Okay? Now Scrooge is over on that one side and Mount Carmel Road on the other way. That school was closed in 1920.
Shut down.
Now, little is really known about that school. I don't have much information. I wasn't able to find out much about it. The next school I want to talk about is the Mount Pleasant School. In Hamilton Bend Township. Now, if anybody knows where Strasbourg's orchards are, it's supposedly the place where they kept the migrants. The migrants used to stay in, just over the ridge there a little bit. And I was told that one of the teachers actually lived in Fairfield and walked there almost every day. Now, I'm very familiar with that area because I used to live there. It's approximately 5 miles, and it's up a hill. So I hope he was hitchhiking or something, because that was a pretty rough way to go. Now, they think it might have been a gentleman by the name of Benjamin Reed. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if anybody knows anything about that. The last school I wanted to talk about was called Weeping Willow. Road near the Iron Springs Road. And that school was closed in 1919. The only thing about it is that I don't know how long it was there because it's not shown in any of the early maps, but it's called Weeping Willow. I don't know if anybody knows anything about Weeping Willow or not.
I think it was close to Fountaindale Fire Hall.
That would make sense because that's basically the location.
It's marked on one of the maps.
What's that?
It's marked on one of the maps, school, and from the deed, it describes it there.
What did you say, Calvin? I didn't get that. Where was it?
Fountaindale Fire Hall.
Okay.
Now we're going to move on a little bit. What do I need to do to get that full picture together? I have to hit the button in the middle. This is the modern Fairfield School. This was taken, this is the modern Fairfield School. And the part that you see over here, I got to hit it on pause. Give me a second. Okay, this is the modern Fairfield School. That's the 19 what was it, man, the 53 edition?
Yeah, that's right.
53 edition.
54.
And that's before you have all the other stuff. Now, one thing that's kind of interesting is that I believe this car here belonged to Faye Slusser. And some of you know Faye, and it was always, Papa always showed those pictures to us, and he said that it was always overheating. So I don't know if that's true or not. So, maybe is that our car beside it? The other car is ours. See, Faye Slusser had a nicer car than we did. Okay, that handsome gentleman there, that's my dad, 1953. Now, I told you to look carefully at the Ortana school and look carefully at this school. And the reason for that is that they are basically identical schools. What had happened, is the story I was always told, was at that time the state provided architectural plans that you could use for their various schools. And they selected this one. Now, my father didn't select that, but the township father selected that. And it was basically a single plan that they used for the schools. That is what's called Hamilton, which was originally called Hamilton and the focus of the high school. Now, there were plenty of people who went to that school. But anyway, it gives you an idea of what it looked like. Of course, it's torn down now, not there anymore. There's the 1963 addition to the building. You know, I had an interesting conversation today with one of the teachers.
No, that was before 6th grade. I went to that building. I was there the first year in 6th grade.
55. That doesn't take anything away from the story I'm going to tell you. I've got too many things going on. I talked to a teacher today, and we were just talking about the way things were. And I remember when you had to go to a doctor's appointment or anything, the time came up for you to go to a doctor's appointment. The teacher would look at it, and you just walked out to the front, stood there until your parents came and picked you up. Now, that sounds pretty strange to modern day people, because you wouldn't dare do that. Let the kids go out, all unescorted, were standing outside waiting for their parents. So that's the way things used to be. There's another view. Who knows what that is?
Chicken coop.
That's the chicken coop. Now, did you go to school in the chicken coop? No, will you actually have class in the chicken coop?
20 years.
Did you really? Okay, I was told, and I think my father was always a little embarrassed about it. I said, oh, that's just used for storage.
I went 4 years.
Did you, in the chicken coop?
I was the only girl in my place.
Well, I'm going to tell you a story. The story that I was always told about the chicken coop. I was told that that was actually bought from Sears and Roebuck. And they put it together there. And that's located behind the town school. See, this brick part here is the rear of the town school. And that is called the chicken coop. I always thought that was fascinating. Jim?
But when we went there, it was better looking.
Yeah. A lot of things in long ago were better looking than they were then, too.
Sears had a line of homes. You can buy your home from Sears.
One of my favorite things, the outhouses at the high school. Does anybody remember the outhouses at the high school? What's that? Yeah. This is located out in here at the high school, over there by where the field house.
Jack, where is
Consolidated.
Yeah, right out here.
Okay, the very first shed was a coal shed.
Could be. Oh, I bet it was a coal shed. Yeah, I bet it was a coal shed. Barbie.
Now, the chicken coop school was located behind
The town school.
the town school, meaning the town hall now.
Yeah, they didn't see it.
Was it on the same side of the road as the school?
This is what they all call
Okay. Oh,
That's what it said.
Behind you.
That's what it said. Back of the odd fellows.
okay.
This is the back of the town school. Okay.
Wrong way. Wrong way, Jack.
So they put the additions on. Okay, that's that center area. It's a consolidated school, those are the two wings. Nice view of the school.
Mr. Reindel's office was right at the doorway.
Yes, it was.
This is back here in the back, and that's where the original shop was,
Yeah.
back there in the corner. And this is basically my last picture. And you're probably wondering why I'm showing you the last picture.
Which one's you?
Fairfield School District has always had a lot of things to be proud of. Fairfield was the first school that had the boys take home ec. 1956, I believe this picture was taken. Now, that's not the only first for Fairfield. Kindergarten in Adams County. Fairfield had the first driver's ed program in Adams County. Fairfield had the second full-time kindergarten program in Adams County. One of the first, I shouldn't say one of the first in the state, but one of the very few that were in the state when it started. Fairfield has a lot to be proud of. There is so much good, there's so many good stories. I can't even start with them all. And the other thing is that we've had so many people that have come out of Fairfield that have done wonderful things. We have graduates that have done all kinds of things. We have doctors, lawyers, we have three-star generals and majors and all kinds of things that, and teachers that have done things throughout the state, throughout the area, throughout the country. We have a lot to be proud of in our little school. Anybody have anything that they would like to share with us? I'm just about finished. Clyde, you want to go up there and talk?
Lord, tried. School when I went to, we call it the war school. When we went to school there, Fort Ritchie was training all the troops down through this area. It was just like living in a war zone. And he mentioned Jim Tupley. But Jim damn near killed me. They used to have a board fence and they had just a board across for a seesaw. Well, I was sitting on the seesaw. He climbed the tree and broke a limb. And he was a big boy. He come down his hat and I went to work. The other thing is, I shouldn't say, but that we were at that the first person. We, like you say, we one day, well, some of these one, I won't mention any names, got me down and put a snake on my chest. He shouldn't have done that. I think first or second grade. Well, I floundered around, I found a brick bat, and I laid it beside the head. The teacher, according to her later on, he was out for half. She thought I killed him. He was out for a half hour. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Well, unless you want to hear the one about your dad.
Okay, let's hear it. Show over.
Well, really not about his daddy. It's about
Get it a little closer to you.
There's a couple of us, when we were out here, we had to go into the fire hall then for school, right? Gym. Weren't supposed to stop in between. What was that thing?
Joe Harbaugh.
Yeah, Joe Harbaugh had we had a Coke machine out front. So there were half a dozen of us stopped. And your dad caught us. And went out there. Now he had a paddle. He didn't use it. River hose, but we got it. But you know what? This poor old country boy didn't have the nickel for the damn coat.
You deserved it anyway.
Not me.
Randy, I just wanted to say that I know Phyllis Snyder Gilbert, and I went to the, maybe some other people here, who went to the school in Fairfield up to 4th grade, and we didn't have indoor plumbing until 4th grade. We used outhouses. And behind the school was the old Fairfield fire hall. I call it the fire hall building. It's since been a big concrete block building. What is it?
Community hall.
Okay, well, no, this was the building that the fire company had. It's way being next to the ball field. What has been the ball field. And anyhow, we used to have a Phyllis to run the dietary department at the Fairfield schools. But anyhow, that's where we went for lunches every day. And the high school kids came out there. I think they ate there too. Some of these older kids, Mr. Shank, didn't you come there for lunch?
I didn't come until 10th grade.
Okay, well, this would have been before that. But anyhow, the kids came there for lunch, and Phyllis Gilbert's mother is the one who started that cafeteria.
Sir.
I just wanted to make sure you understood. You said that the dietary department, for you that don't know, that was the cafeteria. I ate a lot of meals off of there. She and Mrs. Hall. Yes. I can't hear you.
What year was it that the outhouses were still in use?
They were done away with about 1953. That's when we got indoor plumbing there. Isn't that right, Phyllis? Or 4th grade.
I did a statistic recently that said half the homes in Madison did not have running water in about 1953.
Yeah, one of the things I do want to point out to you is we talk about Fairfield first, but what people don't really realize is that Fairfield had actually consolidated its schools before many of the other school districts in Adams County did. There were still one-room schoolhouses in 1960. There were 2 or 3-room schoolhouses in 1960. But Fairfield had all theirs consolidated.
Hey, Jack. Phyllis and Randy was just 1 year younger than me, but I didn't go to that cafeteria.
You're gonna have to.
That's right. I said I didn't go to that first cafeteria because I just walked home and ate.
Well, you talk about that. I'll tell you one thing. Some of you people may not know this. I went to the town school. Mad at lunchtime because Steve Newman was in my class and Lynn Newman was in my class. They went home and ate, and I had to sit there in the town school and eat. And Steve Newman would come back with peanut butter and potato chips through his teeth and everything else. And I had an 11 bologna sandwich. Okay, good to go on. I do have a couple quick things I wanted to share with you. I have a paper here about the Hamilton Band schools. In 1900, I thank Calvin for this, that this is the salary scale.
Per month.
$27 for 7 months.
No, per month. Per month.
Per month, excuse me. $27 per month for 7 months. And the teachers were Drusy King at Station, Lillian Finfrock at Furnace, Robert McLeaf at Union Frack, Benjamin Reed at Mount Pleasant, Florence Markle at Cold Springs, Charles Barton at Pine Hill, Charles Shelley at Fountaindale, Mattie Witherow at West Fairfield. I forgot to mention West Fairfield. Grant Bigham at Mount Hope, and Wilson Hummelball at Ortown. So I thought that was kind of interesting. $27 a month, and at that time. So at any rate, I'd like to take a moment or two here before we close out. I have some personal notes that I'd like to make here. If I can find my paper. This was a project that I started, I thought was going to be real easy. There's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of stories out there. People can tell you and all kinds of things. Like I said, I don't know if they're all true or not. But I do want to thank some people here for us. I'd like to thank them. They're not here, but I do want to thank them. First of all, I'd like to thank Tim Smith at the Adams County Historical Society, who helped me find some of this stuff. Also, Larry Boland from the Adams County Historical Society. I'd like to thank Sally for coming up here and doing the additional research on the Swamp Run School, along with her husband, Dean. I want to send out a special thanks to Kevin Brain. I'm sorry, Kevin. And also to his father, Calvin. And I have to say, Calvin is rapidly becoming the historian for Fairfield. He's looks a lot of stuff up, and he also keeps you on your toes, because I'm almost afraid to say anything. I'm afraid he's going to find and look it up and make sure it's true. And the last one person I'd like to think can't be here tonight. That's my dad, who took these pictures in 1953 and did some slideshows with them and so forth, and told me about them and showed them to me and all that. I'm certainly proud that I was able to share that all with you. So thank you very much for coming.
Doug Comp for whatever he's doing over there. And Mayor Harris for the stills. He's up at what, 497 right now? And I'd also like to thank Rhonda Myers and Matthew Jenkins for their work on the website. And thank you.
And sent me up here. We would be very remiss if we did not thank the school for allowing us to use your elementary gymnasium and for all the support you continually give to community activities. Thank you very much.
Don't forget the membership desk is over there too.
Yes, please come sign up if you did not get to do that yet. You know, right here.